She was just a waitress who drove a drunk billionaire home, but one kiss changed everything. Hello, everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us go back to our main character. It was almost midnight when Lila Anderson pulled her old sedan into the empty parking lot behind the Maple Diner, her apron still stained from another 12-hour shift. The neon sign buzzed weakly above her, flickering between red and white. The night was cold, the kind of cold that seeped into her bones after weeks of double shifts and sleepless nights. She sighed, rubbing her eyes. The tips tonight barely covered gas. Rent was due in 2 days. Her roommate had already moved out, leaving a note and half a month's unpaid share. She was exhausted physically, emotionally, and everything in between. As she reached for her keys, a sharp noise broke through the quiet. A car door slammed across the street, followed by the uneven sound of footsteps. A tall man in an expensive suit stumbled out from the shadows, one hand gripping the side of a sleek black sedan. His tie was crooked, his hair slightly disheveled, and even from across the road, she could smell the faint scent of whiskey carried by the wind. "Hey, are you okay?" Lila called out, instinctively taking a few steps closer. The man turned toward her. His eyes were glassy but kind, his voice slurred but soft. I just need to get home." Lila hesitated. He looked out of place, too polished for this part of town, too vulnerable to be alone. "Do you have someone you can call? A friend? A driver? It might just terrace." In generally starn. He patted his pockets, confused. "My phone. I think I dropped it somewhere inside the bar." Lila exhaled slowly. She could walk away. This was not her problem, but there was something about him, something fragile hiding under that expensive suit that made her pause. "Okay," she said, unlocking her car. "I will give you a ride, but you have to tell me where you live." The man blinked, surprised. "You do not even know me." "I know you will freeze out here," she replied simply. "Come on." He smiled faintly, then nodded. "Thank you. I am Ethan." "Lila," she said, helping him steady himself as he got into the passenger seat. Inside the car, the heater wheezed to life, filling the silence with a low hum. The city lights blurred past the window as they drove through the quiet streets. Ethan leaned his head back, eyes half closed. "You really should not pick up strangers," he murmured. "Maybe not," she said, glancing at him. "But something tells me you are not dangerous." A small laugh escaped him, quiet but genuine. "You would be surprised." Lila smiled despite herself. The man looked like he belonged to another world. Custom suit, silver watch, cologne that probably cost more than her paycheck. Yet there he was, sitting in her old, cracked leather seat, looking utterly lost. When they stopped in front of a glass high-rise, she stared up in disbelief. "You live here?" Ethan's expression softened. "For now." She helped him out of the car, steadying him as they walked toward the entrance. The doorman recognized him immediately and rushed over, alarmed. "Mr. Carter, are you all right?" "I am fine," Ethan muttered. "Just needed a ride." He turned to Lila, his gaze clearer now. "Thank you for not leaving me on the street." Lila shrugged lightly. "Get some rest, all right?" She turned to leave, but his hand caught hers. Warm, firm. "Wait." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The city seemed to hush around them. The wind, the traffic, the noise all fading into a heartbeat. His eyes met hers, the kind of look that makes time stop. Then, softly, he whispered, "Only one kiss." Lila froze, breath hitching. She should have pulled away, but there was something unguarded in his voice, loneliness wrapped in vulnerability. And before she could think, he leaned in, his lips brushing hers in a fleeting, tender moment that felt both wrong and inevitable. When he finally pulled back, he smiled faintly, almost apologetic. "Thank you, Lila." She stood there, stunned, watching him disappear into the elevator. Her heart pounded, not from fear, but from something she could not yet name. As she drove home, the city lights shimmered on the wet pavement. One kiss. That was all it took to leave her world trembling in quiet chaos. She did not know it yet, but that drunk stranger she drove home tonight was Ethan Carter, one of the most powerful billionaires in New York, and the man who would soon turn her life upside down. The next morning, sunlight crept through the thin curtains of Lila's small apartment, slicing across the faded paint on the walls. Her alarm buzzed, but she had already been awake for an hour, replaying the night before like a scene from a movie she did not understand. Ethan Carter. She whispered the name to herself. It sounded unreal, like something out of the glossy magazines stacked near the diner counter. A billionaire, drunk in her car, kissing her like it meant something. She shook her head quickly. It was nothing, she muttered, tying her hair back. He will not even remember. By the time she arrived at the Maple Diner, the morning rush had already begun. Coffee pots hissed, plates clattered, and the smell of bacon hung thick in the air. Lila tied her apron and forced a smile as she poured coffee for a table of regulars. "Rough night?" her coworker Maria asked, eyeing the dark circles under her eyes. "You could say that," Lila replied. "Picked up a drunk guy, dropped him off downtown. Probably some rich troublemaker." Maria laughed. "You and your hero complex, and it's rallentena god and a given tasses is every mutaron." "Yeah, well, I am retiring from charity work," Lila said, but her heart skipped when she glanced outside the diner window. A sleek black car had just pulled up. The door opened, and Ethan Carter stepped out sober, immaculate, and very much real. He looked nothing like the man she had driven home. His suit was crisp, his hair perfectly styled, and his expression calm but searching. For a second, Lila froze, the coffee pot trembling slightly in her hand. He walked in quietly, his presence turning heads. Even in a small-town diner, he carried an aura that demanded attention. When his eyes found hers, he smiled faintly, the kind of smile that was polite but meaningful. "Morning," he said, sliding into a booth. "Do you remember me?" Lila swallowed. "Hard to forget. You owe me gas money." He chuckled softly. "I believe I owe you much more than that." She set a menu on his table, trying to stay composed. "What are you doing here? People like you do not exactly eat at diners like this." "Maybe I wanted to see the person who saved me from making a bigger fool of myself," Ethan said, his tone sincere. "Or maybe I wanted to say thank you properly." Her stomach fluttered in a way she did not like. "You already did. At least, I think that was what the kiss was." He looked slightly embarrassed, but did not deny it. "Then let me make it right. Dinner. My treat. ABA's. Dinner?" she repeated, stunned. "Mr. Carter, you do not have to." "Ethan," he corrected gently. "And yes, I want to." Before she could answer, her manager shouted from across the diner. "Lila, table 4 is waiting." She sighed, stepping back. "I have to work." "I will wait," he said simply, and he did. For the next 2 hours, Ethan sat there, quietly drinking coffee, watching her move between tables with calm determination. Customers whispered, curious who the mysterious man was. When Lila finally handed him the check, he slid a small black card toward her. "This is my direct line," he said. "Call me when you are free." Lila hesitated but took it. "You are persistent, huh?" This was daring the oneable. "Only when something feels important," he said softly. After he left, Maria hurried over. "Girl, who was that?" Lila tucked the card into her pocket. "Just someone who forgot his manners last night." But that night, as she sat in her tiny apartment eating instant noodles, her eyes kept drifting toward that card. She told herself she would throw it away, that men like him never meant what they said. Yet something stopped her. Maybe curiosity. Maybe something deeper. 3 days passed. The diner was busier than ever, and she tried to forget him. But life had other plans. It was late evening when the manager called her into the back office. "You have a visitor," he said, looking oddly nervous. When she stepped out, her breath caught. Ethan stood there again, this time without a suit jacket, sleeves rolled, holding 2 cups of coffee. "I figured you would not call," he said, smiling. "So I came to you. You really do not give up, do you?" "Not when I believe in something," he replied. She crossed her arms. "And what exactly do you believe in?" "In good people," he said simply. "You gave me kindness when I did not deserve it. I would like to return that." Lila studied him for a moment, unsure if this was pity or something real. His voice held no arrogance, only warmth. Against her better judgment, she nodded. "Fine, one dinner, no promises." His smile widened, relief flickering across his face. "That is all I ask." As they stepped outside, the city glowed under the streetlights. Lila walked beside him, still uncertain of what she was getting into. What she did not know was that Ethan Carter had come to the diner for more than gratitude. He had been undercover for weeks, quietly investigating his company's charity foundation after rumors of corruption. That night she drove him home. He had been testing himself, trying to remember what genuine humanity looked like. And now, looking at Lila, he realized he had found it. As they disappeared down the street together, the night breeze carried the faint scent of coffee and hope, two strangers connected by a single act of kindness, unaware that their lives were about to intertwine in ways neither could imagine. The restaurant Ethan chose was quiet, warm, and nothing like the expensive places Lila had imagined a billionaire would frequent. It was a small Italian spot tucked away on a quiet corner of the city, where the candles flickered and the scent of baked bread filled the air. When she arrived, nervous and unsure, Ethan was already waiting, holding out a chair with that same calm, disarming smile. "I was beginning to think you would not show," he said. "I almost didn't," Lila admitted, sitting down. "Places like this make me nervous." "Why?" "Because the menu probably costs more than my week's paycheck." He laughed softly, the sound gentle and genuine. "Then dinner is on me." No arguments. As they ate, the conversation flowed easier than she expected. He asked about her life, how long she had been working at the diner, what she dreamed of doing if money were not an obstacle. Lila told him about her mother's passing, about the sketchbooks she kept hidden under her bed, and the art classes she could never afford. "And you?" she asked finally, setting down her fork. "What does a man like you dream about when he already has everything?" "Veery of peaches." He looked at her for a long moment before answering. "Having something that money cannot buy. Something real." For a moment she forgot to breathe. His words hung in the air, quiet but heavy with meaning. Before she could respond, the waiter came by, refilling their glasses, breaking the spell. After dinner, Ethan walked her to her car. The street was calm, washed in gold light from the street lamps. "Thank you for saying yes," he said, his voice softer now. "I am still not sure why you asked," she replied. "Because I wanted to remember what it feels like to talk to someone honest," he said. "You reminded me that kindness still exists." "Ribe de setter try my weights." Her heart fluttered, but she tried to play it off with a small laugh. "You make it sound like you live in another world." "Maybe I do," he said quietly, "but I think I want to spend more time in yours." The next few weeks passed in a blur of small moments that began to feel strangely natural. Ethan visited the diner often, always sitting in the same booth, always ordering the same black coffee just to talk for a few minutes before heading off to work. Lila teased him about being mysterious, but he never revealed much, only that he was helping manage a charity foundation. One evening she found him outside after closing. He was sitting on the curb, sleeves rolled up, watching the city lights. "Rough day?" she asked, handing him a cup of leftover coffee. He nodded, accepting it with a faint smile. "Sometimes I forget what I started all this for." "All what?" He hesitated, as if weighing how much truth to give her. "Let's just say I am trying to make sure the people who claim to help others actually do it." "You sound like some kind of detective," she joked. "Something like that," he said. But there was something serious in his tone that she could not ignore. When he drove her home that night, the silence between them was soft, almost comforting. Lila looked out the window and wondered how a man like him had found his way into her simple world. Later, as she lay awake in bed, she thought about his words, something real. He was different from anyone she had met. There was a quiet sadness in him, as if he carried too many secrets behind that composed smile. What she did not know was that Ethan was beginning to realize how deep those secrets ran. The more time he spent with her, the harder it became to separate his mission from his heart. And somewhere in the quiet between their worlds, something real had already begun. A cold rain swept across the city that Friday night, blurring the glow of the streetlights into streaks of gold and gray. The Maple Diner had just closed, and Lila stood by the door, locking up, when she noticed Ethan waiting under a street lamp. His suit jacket was soaked, his hair damp, but his eyes held the same calm warmth she had grown used to. "You are going to catch a cold standing out here," she said, hurrying toward him with her umbrella. He smiled faintly. "I wanted to see you before you went home." "Ethan, it is almost midnight. You could have just called." "I tried," he said, slipping his hands into his pockets. "But I needed to ask you something in person." There was something different in his tone, serious, almost hesitant. What is it? He took a slow breath. Do you believe that small kindness can change a life? Lila frowned slightly, confused by the question. I guess I do. Why? He looked down at her, rain dripping from his hair. Because yours did. The night you helped me, I was not just drunk. I was lost. I had been pretending to be someone I was not, trying to test the people around me. But you did not ask for anything. You just helped. She blinked, processing his words. What do you mean, pretending? Before he could answer, headlights flashed across the street, and a sleek black car pulled up beside them. A man in a dark coat stepped out and approached Ethan quickly. Mr. Carter, the board meeting is about to begin. They are waiting for you. Lila's heart stilled. She looked from the man to Ethan, then back again. Mr. Carter? She repeated, her voice barely a whisper. Ethan turned to her slowly, guilt flickering in his eyes. Lila, I wanted to tell you sooner. I am the CEO of Carter Foundation. I have been going undercover these past months to see how our charity was really operating. That night, I was not some lost man. I was testing whether kindness still existed in the world I built. Her umbrella slipped from her hands, crashing softly onto the wet pavement. So all this time you lied to me? It was never about lying, he said quickly, stepping closer. I wanted to understand the truth, and then I met you, and everything changed. She shook her head, tears mixing with the rain. You made me think you were like me, struggling, ordinary. Do you have any idea what it feels like to finally trust someone and find out it was all a game? It was never a game, Ethan said, his voice breaking. I swear I never meant to hurt you. But Lila stepped back, the pain sharper than the cold rain around them. You should go to your meeting, Mr. Carter. Her use of his last name hit harder than any accusation. He tried to speak again, but she was already turning away, walking fast into the night. Ethan watched her disappear down the empty street, his chest tightening. The man beside him hesitated. Sir, the meeting. Cancel it, Ethan said quietly. There is something more important I need to fix. That night, Lila sat alone in her small apartment, the sound of rain tapping against the window. She wanted to hate him, but all she could feel was confusion. Somewhere between his lies and her heart, the truth had gotten tangled. She opened her drawer and pulled out the sketchbook she had told him about. On one of the pages, she began to draw not him as the billionaire everyone admired, but as the tired man who had once needed a ride home. The man who had looked at her like she mattered. When she finished, she closed the book and whispered to the quiet room, I wish I never met you, Ethan Carter. But even as she said it, she knew it was not true. Days passed, and the diner felt emptier than ever. Lila tried to keep her focus on work, but every time the doorbell chimed, her heart betrayed her, hoping it would be him. Ethan Carter had not returned. The world had gone quiet between them, replaced by the hum of the coffee machine and the whisper of what-ifs. At night, she lay awake, staring at the ceiling, anger and longing twisting together until she could not tell them apart. She wanted to forget him, but memories refused to fade. His voice, his laugh. That night, under the rain, it all lived somewhere she could not reach. One morning, a white envelope appeared at the diner's front counter, with her name written in careful handwriting. Maria handed it to her with a teasing smile. Secret admirer? Lila forced a laugh, but her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside was a single note and a check. For the girl who reminded me what kindness truly means. Carter Foundation invites you to join our community outreach team. If you are willing, come to the address below at noon tomorrow. Ethan. Her first instinct was to tear it up. It felt like pity, a billionaire's way of cleaning up guilt with a paycheck. But something in the handwriting stopped her. It was the same gentle honesty she had seen in his eyes when he was not pretending. The next day, curiosity won. She took the bus across town to the address written on the letter. The building was bright and modern, with the name Carter Foundation etched in glass above the doors. Inside, volunteers moved between tables stacked with food boxes, blankets, and supplies for families in need. The air buzzed with quiet purpose. A woman with kind eyes greeted her. You must be Lila. Mr. Carter said you might come. He told you I would be here? Lila asked, startled. The woman smiled. He said you would not believe how much good one person could do. Before Lila could reply, a familiar voice spoke from behind her. He was right. She turned. Ethan stood there, dressed simply this time, no suit, no polished armor. Just a plain white shirt, sleeves rolled, a quiet humility softening his expression. "Why did you bring me here?" she asked cautiously. "Because I wanted you to see what your kindness started," he said. "That night you gave me a ride. I was questioning everything. My work, my purpose, even myself. You made me remember what this was supposed to mean. You helped me find my way back." She crossed her arms, unsure whether to believe him. "And what exactly do you expect from me now? Gratitude?" He shook his head. "No, I expect you to lead this." He gestured toward the bustling room. "A mobile outreach program, meals, care packages, art therapy for kids. It is your idea, Lila. You once told me about helping people who have nothing. I want you to build it." Her breath caught. "Why me?" "Because you are the only one I trust to do it for the right reasons." Silence hung between them, heavy but tender. Around them, the sound of laughter and movement filled the air. Lila looked at the volunteers, the family smiling, the children drawing at a nearby table, and something inside her softened. "I do not forgive you," she said quietly. "Not yet." "I would not ask you to," Ethan replied. "Just let me prove it." For a long moment she studied him, searching for the arrogance that had once defined him. But it was gone. What stood before her was not the billionaire who hid behind power, but the man who had once sat in her passenger seat, lost and human. Finally, she nodded. "All right, I will help, but not for you, for them." A faint smile touched his lips. "That is exactly why I came to you. In assisting maksively shuttle backs of inners, seed gear on order in the backsibly." As Lila picked up a clipboard and joined the volunteers, Ethan watched her quietly, a rare peace settling over him. For the first time in years, he felt like he was finally doing something real. And in that noisy, hopeful room, redemption quietly began. Weeks turned into months, and what began as a small outreach project soon grew into something far bigger than either of them had imagined. Lila threw herself into the work, designing food drives, art workshops, and job training programs for struggling families. She named it Open Hands, a name Ethan said fit perfectly because it sounded like her, honest and generous. Every morning, she arrived before sunrise, greeting volunteers, organizing supplies, and sketching plans on the old clipboard Ethan had given her. He was there often, though he kept a respectful distance at first. Sometimes, she would catch him watching quietly from across the room, his expressions softer than she remembered. One afternoon, as they loaded boxes into the back of a van, Ethan approached her with 2 cups of coffee. "You have built something remarkable, Lila," he said. She brushed a strand of hair from her face, not meeting his eyes. "We built it. Do not give me more credit than I deserve." "I am giving you exactly what you deserve," he said. "You brought life back into this place." She finally looked at him then. "You mean you? You are talking about yourself." He hesitated, then smiled faintly. "Maybe both." For a moment, the air between them felt heavy, with everything unspoken, the betrayal, the forgiveness still unfinished, the growing affection neither dared to name. That night, a local news team came to film a short feature on Open Hands. Lila stood beside Ethan as the cameras rolled, answering questions about the program. When the reporter asked how it started, Ethan glanced at her before saying softly, "It began with a $10 act of kindness." The words caught her off guard. She looked up, meeting his eyes, and saw the gratitude there, deep, unguarded, real. After the crew left, she lingered outside the building, the city lights reflecting off the glass. Ethan joined her, his voice low. "I kept the $10 bill, you know. The one you gave to that stranger." She blinked in surprise. "You still have it?" He nodded. "It reminded me that value is not in what you own, but what you give." Lila was quiet for a long time. "You really have changed." "Maybe," he said, "but not because of power or money. Because someone finally showed me who I could be." A small smile touched her lips. "You talk like you owe me something." "I owe you everything," he replied simply. She turned away, hiding the warmth rising in her chest. "Do not say things you do not mean, Ethan." "I mean every word," he said, stepping closer. "You changed me, Lila. You gave me a reason to care again." For the first time since that night in the rain, she did not step back. The city noise faded around them, leaving only the soft rhythm of their breathing. For a moment, it felt like the world had stopped turning. But just as quickly, Lila pulled herself together. "You should get home. You have a company to run." He looked at her gently. and you have a heart that runs this place better than I ever could." When she finally drove home that night, the streets glowed with quiet promise. For the first time, she allowed herself to imagine that maybe forgiveness did not mean forgetting, it meant moving forward. And though she would not admit it out loud, she knew she was no longer angry. Somewhere between the charity walls and the laughter of strangers they had helped, she had begun to understand Ethan's disguise had started as a test, but it had ended as redemption. And perhaps, just perhaps, something like love. Winter crept into the city slowly, painting the skyline in silver and frost. The Open Hands Center was busier than ever, packed with families seeking warmth, food, and hope. Lila had never felt prouder or more exhausted. Every night she stayed late, organizing donations and answering calls, refusing to rest until everything was done. Ethan noticed. He often stopped by after his meetings, still in his dress shirt but with the sleeves rolled up, bringing her coffee and quiet company. It became a habit neither of them questioned. They did not talk about what was growing between them. They just let it exist, gentle and unspoken. But change was never easy. One evening, as Lila reviewed the monthly reports, she found a series of transactions that made no sense, large sums of money marked as external partnerships, all routed through the Carter Foundation. Her stomach tightened. When she traced them further, the numbers pointed to a private contractor linked to one of Ethan's board members. The next morning she confronted him. He was in his office, looking out over the city when she entered, holding the printed pages in her hand. "Tell me this is not true," she said, her voice steady but trembling underneath. He turned, frowning. "Lila, what are you talking about?" She laid the papers on his desk. "Funds from Open Hands? Someone is taking money that should be helping families. These transfers lead back to your company." Ethan scanned the documents, his jaw tightening. "Where did you get this?" "I found it in the reports," she said. "I thought we were building something honest, Ethan. Was that just another test?" His eyes darkened, hurt flashing across his face. "You think I would steal from you? From them? I do not know what to think anymore," Lila said, her voice breaking. "All I know is every time I start to believe in you, there is another secret waiting." Ethan took a breath, fighting to keep his composure. "You are right to question it. Give me one day. I will find out who is behind this." But she shook her head. "I cannot keep waiting for the truth, Ethan. I am tired of finding it too late." With that, she turned and left his office, ignoring the sound of him calling her name. That night, she returned to the center alone. The volunteers had gone home, leaving only the echo of distant traffic outside. She sat by the window, staring at the city lights flickering against the snow. For the first time since meeting Ethan, she wondered if she had been wrong to let him back in. Across town, Ethan was already digging through the records with his finance team. Anger and disappointment burned in his chest, not at Lila, but at himself for letting corruption slip back into the one place he had sworn to protect. By dawn, he found it. A board member, his father's former partner, had been quietly rerouting funds, using Ethan's name as cover. Without hesitation, Ethan ordered an internal audit and sent the evidence to the authorities. The next day, headlines filled the city. Carter Foundation whistleblower exposes corruption scandal. When Lila saw the news, her heart twisted. Ethan had done exactly what he promised. She went back to the center that evening, unsure if he would be there. He was. Standing near the donation tables, sleeves rolled up, sorting supplies as if nothing had happened. "You were right," he said softly when he saw her. "There was corruption, but not from me." Lila swallowed hard. "I should have trusted you." "No," he said. "You should always demand the truth. That is what makes you who you are. In Manaboded, it is he do. In Abader manners without self of that." For a long moment they stood in silence. Then she reached for his hand, hesitant but sincere. "So, what now?" He smiled faintly. "Now we start over. No secrets this time." And for the first time, she believed him. The scandal came and went like a storm. Within weeks, the headlines shifted, the noise faded, and the Carter Foundation's reputation was stronger than ever. Ethan refused to take credit for exposing the corruption, instead naming Lila as the one who first uncovered the truth. Her picture appeared in local newspapers beside the title, "The Woman Who Brought Integrity Back to Charity." And he slated as that "Anning Grubaning" and laudable graces. At first, Lila was embarrassed by the attention, but Ethan only smiled when he saw her trying to hide the articles. You earned it, he said one evening as they sorted winter coats at the center. You saved what we built. She looked up from the pile of boxes. We saved it. It was the first time she said we out loud. Ethan's eyes softened at the sound. Then let me thank you properly, he said, reaching into his coat pocket. He pulled out a small, worn envelope, the same one she had once seen on his desk. I kept this for months, he said quietly. Inside is the $10 bill you gave me that night at the station. I wanted to return it to you when I knew I had earned it. They def on a ride after quarter rester in mensig roundness and builded. Lila blinked, stunned. You still have that? He nodded. It was my reminder. Every time I felt lost, I looked at it and remembered the girl who believed in kindness without knowing who she was helping. She took the envelope slowly, her throat tightening. The bill inside was creased and faded, but she could still see her faint handwriting in the corner, her name. You really are terrible at letting go of the past, she whispered, half laughing, half crying. Only when it means something worth holding on to, he said. The air between them shifted, warmer, closer. For a long moment, neither spoke. Around them, the center was quiet, the last volunteers gone. Ethan reached out, his hand brushing hers. Lila, he said softly, I do not want to hide behind work anymore. You are the best thing that has ever happened to me. Not because you forgave me, but because you saw me before I even saw myself. Her heart pounded, caught between disbelief and hope. Ethan, you do not have to say this. I know, he replied, stepping closer. But I want to. She could see it in his eyes, no secrets, no masks, just the man who had once stumbled into her life and never truly left. Slowly, she smiled, tears threatening to spill. I am not good at rich people things, she said softly. Gala dinners, board meetings, all that. He laughed quietly. Then we will skip all that. We can build something else, something real. That night, for the first time since everything began, Lila let herself lean into the moment. The snow outside fell in quiet flakes against the window, and when Ethan pulled her into his arms, it felt like everything that had been broken between them had finally found a way to mend. They did not talk about love, not yet. It did not need to be said. It was there in the way he looked at her, in the way she stayed close without fear. Later, as they locked up the center together, Ethan turned to her and said, You know, the first time I met you, you changed my life. She smiled gently. No, you just finally decided to live it. He reached into his pocket, pulling out a small velvet box. Then maybe it is time I prove it. Lila froze, eyes wide. He opened the box slowly, revealing a delicate silver ring, not grand or flashy, but simple, like everything they were. This is not a proposal, he said softly. Not yet. It is a promise that I will never lie to you again. And as snow began to fall heavier outside, Lila took a deep breath and whispered, Then I promise to believe you. The city outside glowed quietly, and for once both of them knew kindness had led them here, and love would keep them there. Spring arrived quietly that year, softening the city after a long winter. The cherry trees outside the open hand center bloomed in pale pink, their petals drifting across the sidewalks like confetti. Lila stood by the window, watching volunteers unload boxes for the new art program she had designed. Children laughed in the courtyard, splattering paint on their smocks. It felt peaceful, steady, and for the first time in years, she felt like she was exactly where she belonged. Ethan walked in behind her, a cup of coffee in each hand. You know, he said, handing one to her, you have turned this place into something extraordinary. Lila smiled. We did it together. You gave me a chance. No, he said softly. You gave me a reason. And Will did. She looked up at him, warmth flickering in her chest. Things between them had changed slowly, naturally. They still argued sometimes about plans, budgets, late-night work, but underneath it all, there was trust. Real trust, built not from grand gestures, but from showing up day after day. That afternoon, the foundation hosted its first anniversary celebration. Reporters, volunteers, and families filled the courtyard. The same reporter from months ago approached them again, microphone in hand. Mr. Carter, Miss Anderson, your foundation has changed so many lives. How did it all begin? Ethan glanced at Lila before answering. It began with $10 and a stranger who refused to walk away. The honor read him on a program. is so way when him right about. Lila laughed softly, shaking her head. You are never going to let that story go, are you? Not a chance, he said with a grin. It is my favorite one. As the ceremony began, Ethan took the stage to thank everyone. When he spoke, his voice carried not the confidence of a billionaire, but the sincerity of a man who had learned humility. A year ago, I went looking for honesty and found it where I least expected, inside a heart that gave without asking for anything back. This foundation is not about me. It is about the people like Lila who remind us that kindness can rewrite a life. Applause filled the air. Lila felt her eyes sting with emotion. Later, as the crowd thinned and dusk settled over the city, Ethan led her to the garden behind the building. The same garden they had planted together months earlier was now alive with color roses, tulips, and wildflowers tangled under the fading light. Do you remember what you said the night I gave you that promise ring? He asked. She smiled faintly. I said I would believe you. He reached into his pocket again, his hands trembling slightly. Then I hope you still do. This time he dropped to one knee. The ring he held was not extravagant, just gold, simple and timeless. Lila Anderson, you changed my life with one act of kindness. You gave me back my faith, my purpose, and my heart. Will you marry me? For a moment, all she could do was stare at him, tears forming. The world seemed to hold its breath. Then she nodded, whispering through a trembling smile. Yes, Ethan, I will. Laughter and applause erupted from behind them. Maria and the volunteers had been watching through the glass doors. Ethan stood, slipping the ring onto her finger, and the crowd cheered as he kissed her gently under the evening sky. As the lights of the city shimmered around them, Lila rested her head on his shoulder. Do you realize, she murmured, that all of this started because of a $10 bill? He smiled. No, it started because of you. Before is absent dollars. And with that, their story came full circle, born from kindness, tested by truth, and sealed by love. The girl who once gave away her last $10 had found something far more valuable, a heart that saw her worth long before the world ever did.